Imagine hearing that a registered dietitian, potentially trained in the same traditional restrictive system as you, sold a $36,000 coaching program. And it wasn't because she had a massive audience or was famous on Instagram. It was because she owned the depth of her work. She built an offer around a true transformation. And most importantly, she stopped letting our profession's outdated rules dictate her potential. That decision is exactly why I brought today's guest onto the show. Gina Worful is one of the most extraordinary examples of what becomes possible when a health expert steps outside of the conventional private practice model and creates something far more aligned with how transformation actually works. Now, I first saw Gina mention this ultra high ticket offer in a Facebook group, very casually, as if selling at that level was the most normal thing in the world. And when I saw it, my brain immediately went, wait, hold on. Who is this woman? Because in the world of dietetics, high ticket typically means around like 2,000 or 3,000, maybe $15,000 tops. So hearing someone confidently reference a $36,000 health coaching program, that is the kind of expansion that makes you pause and reevaluate every assumption you've ever held about pricing, value, and the role health experts are allowed to play in this industry. In today's conversation, Gina takes you behind the scenes of her entire journey. She shares the early struggles, including having to give refunds on $100 sessions. She talks about going through an identity crisis, the reinvention of her approach, and even the moment that she realized the deeper work that she wanted to do requires a completely different container than the type we were taught in school. So, if you're a dietitian like me and Gina, or if you're a health coach or other type of health provider who feels called to do meaningful, high impact work, and you know the traditional model doesn't reflect the transformation that your ideal clients truly want, and maybe you've even wondered what it takes to build a really premium offer that feels aligned, ethical, and powerful and actually sells, this episode is going to break your brain in the best way possible. Gina's story will show you what can happen when you stop asking for permission and start creating from your expertise, your lived experience, and your deepest knowing about what actually helps people change. So let's get into it. All right, everyone. Well, I am so excited to have with us on the show today, Gina Worful. Welcome to the Nurse CEO, Gina.
Hey, thanks, Laura.
And the reason I invited Gina was I forget how long ago this was, but probably a few months ago, sometime this year, I think, I saw a comment from you in one of the dietitian Facebook groups about a high ticket offer. And I don't even remember what the comment or the question was at this point, but I remember seeing that you said you were selling, I think it was like a $36,000 offer. And as somebody who teaches my clients how to do high ticket, we call high ticket like anything above 2,000. So seeing the 36,000, I was like, holy cow, I gotta talk to this woman and see, first of all, what is she selling? Second of all, how did she get to that price point? Because it's one of these things where I have my own spectrum of like what I consider kind of the realm of what's possible. And whenever I see something that just fully is like outside of that bubble that I have for myself, I'm like, okay, we need to have a conversation about how that even exists and what it took to get there. So that's why I invited Gina on the show. Gina, before we get into all of that fun stuff, do you want to give our listeners a quick nutshell version of who you are? How did you get to this particular expertise as a
Yeah,
dietitian? And then we'll go from there.
totally. Yeah, I'll give you some background because I think it's actually going to help make a lot of sense as to how I got to this high ticket offer and how you can pull out some of the lessons to kind of craft and create your own offer. And I don't want people to feel like too hung up on like, oh my gosh, there's this number and it's so high and nobody's ever going to pay for that and like to get too hung up on like what that number is. But what I would really love for an intention of this podcast is to maybe just stretch some of the ways that we think and the ways that we've been taught. Because leaving school as a dietitian, I was really just told like, okay, you open up a private practice, you charge maybe $100 an hour, and you're going session by session. And for a lot of dietitians, that can be a really disheartening thing to experience when the reality sets in that, like, wait a second, how do I actually create something that's profitable and will allow me to thrive? And so, first, I just want to say that if there's any apprehension around maybe having a very high ticket offer, to just use this as a way to be inspired, to think differently, to challenge what you've known, and feel free to take any of the lessons that I've learned along the way. For me, my business is always an evolution. I'm trying a lot of different things. I can't say it's been an easy process. But to kind of rewind, I think telling a little bit of my story and how I got here will help you kind of see how I decided to create this offer. So I became a dietitian back in 2012, so about 13 years now, almost 14 years ago, from Eastern Michigan University. That's where I went to school. And I went into private practice and was really excited, like a lot of dietitians are, that like we just genuinely want to help people. We want to change the world. And I opened up this practice and I was renting a space where like at a recreation center where I think they took 40% and I made 60%. And so I was charging per client, like $100 per client. So I think I was making like $60 per client. And I was giving them their meal plans and a lot of the things that I was taught in school, calculate their calories, tell them how many calories they need, subtract those calories, help them with meal plans, a few goals at a time, don't overwhelm them. I was like playing by the books. And a lot of my clients were really struggling. Either some of them they trusted me, but they would set some goals and then maybe slide back and they'd come in the next week and they'd be like, well, I really tried or I changed for a little bit. And they kept going back. And I was like, what is going on? Is this me? Is it them? What's happening? Why can't I really help these people? And what was really terrible was like I was trying so hard to like pour in, like I'm giving them the recipes, I'm giving them everything that they need, I'm giving it all that I've got. And I remember this one client coming in and she did her first session with me. And I gave her like a picture of my plate and all of the resources I had. And she went to the recreation center and she asked for a refund. And I was like, wow, how am I so not equipped to be able to figure this out? And at the time, I was also very motivated with my health, as a lot of us dietitians are. But what I started to notice was that even what the program I was giving my clients, I was struggling to stick to. And I noticed that I was starting to go through a very similar pattern where I would get really motivated and I'd be like, okay, you're going to do it. I would plan out what I was going to eat. I would meal prep. I would log my food. But then it was like something almost would take over my brain and I would sabotage myself. And I would just like go back the other way, sabotage myself, struggle with overeating, and then get really motivated again. And I was starting to go through those pendulums. And so I was like, what is really happening? Why is it so hard to just stick to this? Is this what my career was? And I remember calling another dietitian and asking, are you getting success with your clients? Like, how are you going about this? And they said, Gina, your job is to provide the information, their job is to follow through. And I do understand some of the logic behind that I can't force someone to change their lives. However, none of my clients were changing. They were fighting me on paying $100 an hour. They were asking for refunds, and I never got a single testimonial. No one was like, this really changed my life. And so around that time, I decided to close my practice. I kind of had like this young life crisis. It felt like I was in a crisis. Like, what do I do? Do I quit my career? Am I a scam? Like, what is happening? And I took a really long break. I closed my private practice and I actually got a job at the time. I worked for a destination health spa as their dietitian and kind of like rebuilt a little stability and security. But during that time, I really shifted my focus away from what was I eating into really understanding myself. And I started to understand, why was I losing control? Why was I self-sabotaging myself? And what I learned was that there were so many things that I didn't learn in school. And it's nothing against my school or my education. It's just that I think that there's more to the story. And what I realized is that there's emotional components that drive our food behaviors, and there's our nervous system that influences our hunger and our cravings for sugar, and there's the beliefs that we have about ourselves that influence our behaviors. And there was just this whole deeper well of things that like I didn't understand. And I probably spent about it's been probably about 7 years now of really studying and understanding this self-trust so that I wasn't losing control and that I wasn't in that pendulum of like being motivated and then losing control. And I became so passionate about this that I wanted to test out like, what if I just had people focus on that? The connection with their body, rebuilding trust with their food, learning to love their body and understand these different parts of human behavior. And so I actually invited two of my previous clients who I worked with way back years before that. And I said, I'd love to work with you for free. I really want to try something different. And they were game for it. And I coached them for quite a while, probably like, I think like a year, and just understanding their relationship with food. And they had such a positive experience that I started working with people in that way. And some of the clients that I had worked with before who really struggled in the past were now working with me in this new way. And they were having these very transformational experiences that I didn't have to monitor their food logs. They were able to tune into themselves and say, is this the right choice for me without feeling powerless to food? So I knew I was really onto something really big. And that was like the seed of what started thinking about creating a very unique and different offer. Does that make
Mhm.
sense of like how the evolution has kind of happened up to this point?
Yeah, well, and it's even, more interesting that the start of the journey is getting refunds on $100 sessions, right? It's like, you would think, "Okay, surely she got something out of that session that it would be worth $100," but, perception is everything, and it sounds like she didn't feel that she did, and to be able to go from there, which I think is most dietitian's worst nightmare, right? Is like undercharging and then also getting asked to give their money back because they didn't have
Yes.
a good experience to the other end of the spectrum. So I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some level of journey now from that point to the high ticket offer. I mean, I could be wrong if you just jump straight to that price point, but walk me through the process you went through once you started seeing you were getting results, people were happy, you wanted to go deeper on this particular strategy for your clients. What did you do next?
Yeah. So next, I just wanted to get as much experience with this as possible. And so I took a lot of just certifications and programs to develop my own learning and my own skills. And so from that time of building my skill set, there was for sure this period of being the student again and not feeling very good at something. And sometimes I think as dietitians, we really want to be good at what we do. And sometimes maybe there's a questioning of like, am I doing good enough? And it's okay if we have some of those fears and doubts. What makes it really special is that we genuinely care about people. Like we genuinely want to help people. And I let that lack of confidence pull me through to like, I might not have all the answers. I might mess up. I might sometimes say the wrong thing to a client that was like, I should have not said that. But I started developing any chance that I could, my skills and practicing. And so I slowly grew this small group. So this is what became, it was right around, right as COVID was happening, I got furloughed from my job and actually my job for a while. And my job wanted me to come in and do nothing. We couldn't have clients there because of COVID. And so they just wanted me to come there and do nothing so that they could still get a loan. And I was sitting there and I was like, you know what? This is a waste of my time. And I could be building my own practice right now. I feel confident enough. And so that's when I incorporated the Mastering Mindfulness Institute full time. And I quit my job and I just started growing this group coaching program as much as I could. And those groups really, I still have a very small social media following, but like I had no social media at all. And so I built momentum by just purely relationships. And one time ago, I met a mentor and I told him, oh, I have this great idea for this big coaching program, but there's so many pieces. I don't have the platforms. I don't know the teaching modules and the this and then that. And he said, you are literally using that to keep you from taking action. Could you actually just pick up the phone and say, hey, we're going to have a group back in the day when you could call in on a line? Because I didn't know, like, do I use Zoom? Do I use whatever? And his advice is like, what is the one thing you could do right now is what got the ball rolling. And so I just like let go of it needs to be perfect. And I just started getting experience by jumping on a Zoom, inviting people. My first client into my group coaching group in Mastering Mindfulness, I offered her $250 a month. And that felt like something to get the ball rolling for me that allowed me to start charging. And now this was after working with people for free for about a year. And I feel
Mhm.
really good about that. I was like
Mhm.
really working out the kinks, I was really working out like, what do I believe in? How do I help people? So that was great. And they wrote me great testimonials. And so, anyway, I just continued to build my groups. And to this day, I still have those groups. But I think when I really made the really high ticket offer, I just thought I have something very unique and something very special. And I really think I've built the confidence that I can help someone through their entire transformation. And I didn't completely have that before. And so I wouldn't say that I was ready to just do a really big high ticket offer before because I wasn't super confident in how I was going to get someone those results. And they do need to meet me in it. But now I felt like I had the tools to help them understand why do they lose motivation and how to keep them in it? Why do they have cravings show up when they're trying to change and how to navigate that? How to create like a deep sense of motivation that doesn't fade and that stands through the test of their whole journey. And so it does require them to show up, but I felt confident that I had new skills and tools that if different things were showing up, I could help them through it aside from the nutrition piece. And so it was actually my boyfriend who suggested it to me. He wasn't a business coach, but he said, "You have a very unique skill set. Why not just go for something and really provide a super high touch experience for someone? Just work with a few people, give them everything you have, give them your phone number." And I don't know if I would suggest this for everybody, but I did create like this concierge type service where I was like, I'm here for you. If you need something, like you can call me, you can text me, you can reach me, kind of anytime. And then we were working through some of the challenges that naturally show up for people, like their motivation, their cravings, and then I was basically creating nutrition programs for them, but really making it highly personalized. Something I did include with those offers was doing some lab testing. And I don't think that that's a required thing. I think that just making something personalized, if you're not familiar with labs or if you can't run labs because there's a state restriction, it wasn't like the biggest core part of my program, but it was pulling together like what are the things that I think somebody would need to be successful? What does that whole journey look like? And creating a program that fits that.
Mhm.
I think in the past where I made mistakes was I would say, well, people don't want to do a program that's longer than 8 weeks, or people don't want to do a program that's longer than 3 months. So I should create a program that fits what they want. But if I create a program that fits what they want, then we keep getting the results that they have. There's a reason why they don't have what they want. And so when I got honest, I was like, you know what? It's going to take someone a year to go through the resistance they have, their, attachments to foods, the ups and downs. And if I only work with someone when they're on that short motivational high in the beginning, they're not going to make it through the whole way. And so I kind of figured out how long would it take someone to really have a transformational experience with their food, with their health. And I estimated that would take a year. And so I created this program and said it's a year-long contract. And I let them know the phases that they would go through. You're going to go through changes of where first initially you're going to be really motivated, you're going to be inspired, you're going to think that you're never looking back. Don't get attached to that. That's going to fade. Around months 2, that motivation's going to fizzle out. You're going to crash. You're going to start having resistance. You're not going to want to do it. You're not going to want to show up for our calls. Expect that to show up. That's going to be your point where you can quit or you can lean in. And I let them know that that's coming. Don't worry. That'll be around probably months 3. But if they want to really stay dedicated to what they want, then they move into the next stage, which is being curious about their habits, why they're struggling, and being willing to lean into the discomfort of the process of change. And by letting somebody know it's going to take 12 months, and I let them know all the different stages of how they're going to be feeling, what they're going to be experiencing, something really special happened. Now I started to normalize the struggles that people were having, and they stayed in it because they're like, oh, this is a normal part of the process.
Mhm.
Where people quit early on is when they're like, oh, I lost motivation. This is uncomfortable. This is bad. I quit. And so it helped me create this offer that was when I focused on mastering mindfulness, I helped them really focus on why they were giving up, maintaining motivation, creating a nutrition program that was highly personalized and that was like the length of how long I thought it really truly needed to be and preparing them for like that whole journey and what it looked like. And I feel like those were probably the core elements that made it that high ticket offer. I think ultimately I focused on a problem that a lot of people really wanted solved, which is like, yeah, I can get the nutrition program, but I can't stick to it. And so that's kind of what I was looking for is like, what is something really special that was my pain that I really struggled with, that I became determined to figure out? And then something that people really wanted that they were like, well, I could do another nutrition program, but like, I really want this. I really want to stay consistent. I want to trust myself. I want to be confident. And so that's what I think allowed me to create such a unique offer.
Yeah. So, how did you go about getting the first client for this offer?
Yeah, I would say that there definitely is some truth that different people can afford different things. And so it's not necessarily about convincing everyone that they can afford a high ticket offer, but there were people who I already had some established relationships with before that they had mentioned to me that they were like working on their health and those people one some things that were unique to them is that they're all business owners. And so I think that they believe in investing in themselves. So I didn't have to teach them about if you invest in yourself, you know, getting over like the self-worth hump of investing in themselves. They know that if you're a business owner, you know that in order to get the thing that you want, you need to be coached. That's the only way that you're going to get the thing that you want, or at least that's how you speed up the process. And so they believe in the value of investing in themselves. And so I do think that that was a big part of having a high ticket offer was, does it fit for the person who believes in personal development? They believe that they're worth personal development and they believe in like going after their goals and their desires. And so this definitely wasn't something that I just put out on Facebook, but just from different relationships and personally reaching out to those people and saying, I know you mentioned before that you were working on your health and I have a new offer. I would love to share it with you. And because I think it matched what they were really looking for, it was the solution that they were looking for. Plus, it was somebody who believes in investing in themselves. It felt like the right fit for us.
Mhm. I think that's really important to double down on is this idea that you didn't have to convince the person that they themselves were worth investing in.
Yeah.
'Cause you could have the best offer, you could have the most advanced skill set old and be the best person in the world at what you do, but if you're talking to somebody who doesn't actually believe that they themselves are worth spending money on, it doesn't matter. And it honestly doesn't even matter what the price point is, like, whether it's 3,600, $360, like, whatever it is. And I do think a lot of people, especially dietitians, female health experts, I just feel like we for whatever reason, are the kind of people who don't get exposed to a lot of that, personal development, investing in yourself. Like, I almost feel like we get taught the opposite, where it's like, we should do stuff for free. We should, make it as affordable and accessible as possible. You should take insurance so that people don't have to pay for it. And so we're almost indoctrinated into this model where your your support shouldn't cost somebody anything in a lot of cases. And to go from that and to have that belief to not only believing that you as the consultant, the expert has a skill set worth investing in, but also that your clients also believe that they are worth investing. And I just think it's like this whole separate world that I don't remember ever getting exposed to anything like that in school.
No. No, not at all. Not at all. And sometimes like you said, like we have this perception that it's a bad thing, but it's really about shaping. I think it's about shaping a program that will give somebody the best result. And what I realized was when I was offering these one-to-one sessions that I didn't even feel very compelled by myself because I was struggling, it wasn't really getting somebody the end result of what they wanted. And so maybe you're not ready to, maybe you never want to launch a very high ticket offer. And maybe you're like, you know what, I want something that's moderately that most people can afford, like $2,000 or something. But you're not selling session by session because you know that that doesn't actually create commitment to people. And when I had somebody commit to a year-long program, they were like, well, I'm in this. So my commitment is firm. I really do think that it is about matching, like, what is it that it takes somebody to take that to make that transformation? And maybe for you, it's not a year-long program for someone to get the transformation that you're passionate about, but maybe you're like, okay, realistically, it's going to take them 4 months to learn these skills. And so I'm going to sell a package that fits the transformation and starting with the transformation in mind instead of what do people want to pay? What's the right amount of sessions? I think it's more getting clear on like what's the transformation you want to offer and realistically what does that take so that people can trust you that you're like this is how much it will cost, here's how much the investment is, how much time it will take, and you can be like the leader in that.
Yeah, well, and I think that that's a really important point to, in general, creating parts of your business, specifically your offer, but I think any part of your business. I find that a lot of the people we work with, when they come into the program, have this tendency to look outward to determine what they should do. So they say, well, what are other people charging? How long are other people's programs? What does insurance pay? What are people willing to pay? What are people, saying yes to? What's a reasonable price point? And all of that is being driven by what do other people say is appropriate for this. And I want everyone who's listening to just think about, are you actually making decisions in your business based on what Gina's saying, where it's like, in your gut, in your heart, wherever you're making decisions from, that let's say it's 12 months is the right amount of time, but your brain is like, oh, nobody will do 12 months. Nobody wants to do 12 months. People would like it to take 12 seconds if they could make it take that amount of time, right? Like nobody wants anything to take money, time, effort. Like that's not a desire any human wants to have. But going from what is actually true, and I'm guessing Gina, you would agree with this, your confidence and your authority in a sales conversation when you've designed an offer that you believe like 100% is the best solution to the problem that they're in and is the best option for them to get the transformation, that is going to have such a bigger impact on whether or not that person says yes and invests at any price point versus some arbitrary number that you're like, well, 3,000 is the most anyone would pay for this. So that's what I'm going to charge. And nobody's going to do a year program. So I'm going to do it for 3 months because that's what people say they want. And you're making all these decisions based on what other people think is the right way to do it. And then you go into a sales conversation and you don't even believe in your offer.
Yes,
Not really,
totally.
right? So
Yes.
tell me more about like going into those sales conversations. I could imagine the first time you pitched that offer, maybe there was some nerves. I feel like I would be nervous pitching that offer for the first time.
Yeah.
What what beliefs did you have to have for yourself to make that even something that was possible?
That's a great question. So I actually worked with this incredible belief coach. So funny that you said this because I was feeling all of those things that you said. How do I know my value? How much do I know how much to charge? And what is actually valuable? And something that she taught me that she helped me shift my beliefs around is that value doesn't exist. Value is not a real thing. It's a made up thing because there are some people who work extremely hard, 12 hours a day, and they don't get paid a lot and they're doing amazing things for the world. And are they getting compensated for the value that they provide to the world? And there's some people who sit around and they don't do anything and they live very abundantly and they don't actually provide a lot. They may not change people's lives. And so it's one about reframing this thing of value. But what actually helped me feel really good about it is instead of promising a transformation, she said, what do you feel like you can promise people? And that's what gave me the confidence because before I was so terrified. I don't know if I can promise somebody weight loss. What if they don't? I don't know if I can. And so I was so afraid and I was undercharging because I was afraid that I couldn't provide the transformation of like, people want to know that they can lose 50 pounds or whatever. And I was so afraid. And then when she gave me permission to say, what can you honestly and integrity promise somebody that you can deliver? And I started to think about that. Okay, I know if somebody works with me, they will have a deeper understanding of why they make the food choices that they make. They'll feel more powerful in their food choices. They'll learn how to create self-love from a deep place, not fluffy affirmations. They'll have a more harmonious relationship with themselves and with their body. And oftentimes people lose weight from that place. Not everybody does. Everyone is on their own journey. Sometimes it doesn't look perfect and linear. And the more that I could be honest about what I could provide, the better I felt about charging because I wasn't afraid of what if they don't get the transformation. Like it's the more honest I could be. And then that felt like I was being in integrity. And then I would tell the person on the call, here are the things I can promise to give to you. How does that sound for you? And I was actually shocked that so many people were so relieved by that. And what I realized is that I thought people wanted to be promised weight loss outcomes, but that what people actually feel is so much fear and terror that they're going to fail. And so for the first time, I saw people like, oh, that feels really good. I can go at my own pace. I can learn about myself in a safe space. I can grow at my own time. I have a lot of time. You're going to be right here with me. And there's something that creates so much safety when you're like, I'm going to be here for you in your corner for a year. And it's not going to look perfect. That's okay. I've been through it too. I'm here for you. It's okay if it doesn't look linear. We're going to be in this together. And it was so shocking that people, I think, felt safer when they weren't promised this outcome that I was scared. And so, because I felt like I was in integrity with what I could deliver on, that made me feel confident about what I was charging because I was like, we have clarity. Here's what I'm delivering on. This is your experience. And there was like a mutual agreement versus like, I can promise, 30 pounds lost in 90 days. And it's like, what if they don't get that?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I would be curious to know if you think that the type of people you were having these conversations with impacted how that went, because I feel like when even for my program, which is not a health program, we have people that join that don't have a lot of questions about like, "Oh, is it guaranteed that I'm gonna get, like, a particular money outcome, and what happens if I don't?" And all this. They have a lot of questions around, "Can you, like, basically guarantee that this is gonna work for me?" And then there's people who don't ask those questions at all. They're like, they just wanna know, like, what are we building here? How am I being supported? And I don't know if you had any conversations with people who are like, no, I need to know for 100% fact that I'm going to lose 50 pounds or something. Or did you just happen to connect with people who you kind of already knew they were more about the growth experience and less about like the guaranteed outcomes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that because I don't really put guaranteed outcomes in my messaging, I'm guessing that the people who find me are like, "Yeah, I've done those things and there's something that I'm missing." And I feel like you have something like by the time people get to the place of working with me, I feel like they're sort of familiar with my message, that they're like, yeah, there's something I haven't looked at yet. There's something that I'm missing. And there's kind of just like this feeling of like, there's something more that I have to learn because I don't actually hardly ever have calls with people who are like, am I going to get this result by this timeline? And if I don't, what is that like? But
Mhm.
the cool thing is now that I've been doing mastering mindfulness, I tell people this is a lifelong journey. You might work with me for a year, but this is a lifelong journey with yourself. And I think that their nervous systems feel so relaxed with that. Now they can actually be present instead of like, oh my gosh, I have to start changing and I have to impress her and like I have to hit this goal. So there's no right or wrong. I think it's just the style that I like, and it's not for everybody. Some people do really want fast results, and that's fine too. I think that I do work with a very unique type of person. But since I've been doing this coaching, I've never had anyone ask me for a refund, and I've never had anyone quit a program before the program is up. And now, like, my group coaching program is 6 months. And many times, most of my students retake it a second time, a third time. A lot of my students are on their third time right now. And I think it is because they're not pushed or pressured. They get to go at their own timeline, their own discovery. It's just such a different experience. I don't think there's a right or wrong way of doing it, but I don't think that I don't think those people come to me.
So, what would you tell somebody who has a lot of internal pressure around creating a program, whether it's one on one group, whatever, creating a program that does get a result quickly for people? And I ask this because this is one of the things that comes up a lot in our MBA program, which is, how, like, what if they don't get the result and then they feel bad that they took the money and, the person didn't get the outcome and all of that. And I feel like you've kind of touched on this, but how do you show up in your program with this situation where you almost expect people to take the program multiple times, where it's like, oh, it's normal to go through this program twice, three times. Like, I feel like that's a very different mindset than the mindset of, I want this to be, they do the program, they get the result, they're happy with the outcome, like all of that, like one and done type of experience. So
Yeah.
that might be a little bit of a jumbled question, but I'm just thinking about, like, even our program's 6 months. People can stay longer than 6 months, but I'm like, most people don't take it again or do it again for,
Yeah.
another 6 months, another, year. And I'm just curious, like, how do you approach it to where somebody doing the program multiple times is actually like normal and not like, oh, they didn't get the result that they wanted, and that kind of
Well, because
mindset.
so they do get a result that they want,
Mhm.
but I let them know what should they expect? Like what can they expect? And that helps normalize their experience. And so like it doesn't mean that the goal doesn't have to be to get people to retake your program multiple times. I just see that with the way that my program is, like there's deeper layers that people go into of like
Mhm.
connecting with themselves and their emotions. And so what I would feel comfortable with is like if you're nervous about getting somebody an outcome, like what is an outcome that you can promise? And so when I started mastering mindfulness, I had no idea what kind of outcome I was going to get people, but I had a good feeling about it. So the outcome that I promised was I can provide a safe, non-judgmental space for us all to talk about real things. What are we struggling with? And they loved that. Most people actually just want a safe space where they're not judged. And so to have like that kind of community, most people never have that and they feel so lonely. And that is like 90% of the healing work. So if you don't feel confident actually being like, oh my gosh, how do I, create a transformation for somebody? What do you feel good about providing? I felt good that I could bring people together in a safe space and offer that. Then as I learned and I practiced a little bit more things, I started to feel like what were the things that I naturally got good at because I worked on them in myself. And so I was like, well, I don't know if this is going to work for other people, but here's how I learned what self-love feels like when I'm struggling. And I'm like, ooh, gosh, I just lost control over my food. Like that really hurts. Like, how do I come back from that? And I would feel that in myself. And I'm like, hey, I have a talk with myself. I'm here for you. How you feeling? And I'd start to like like work through that relationship with myself. And then I would bring that to them. Hey, do you guys ever have one of those moments? That's what we're going to talk about today. So it's okay to be honest about where your skill set is. And I think that is where you build the confidence. And so the more I can be honest about what do they experience at every phase, I think that they feel better about that. So what I tell my students is your first 6 months, you're learning a ton of new stuff. We look at things very differently than the health industry. The health industry says, suppress your cravings, they're bad. I do the opposite. I say your cravings are important messages from your body that you need something. We need to explore them to understand them. So all these different like things that are kind of opposite of what we've been taught. So what I tell people is the first 6 months, you're going to be completely thinking differently about your approach. And I know by the end of this 6 months, you're going to have a better connection with your body. You're going to see what drives the food choices that you make. And you're going to feel like more empowered in that. And if you feel good from there, you're going to have all the skills that you need. It's a lot in 6 months. So then sometimes after students just take the first 6 months, then they'll say, okay, you know what? Now that I learned these concepts and I have the awareness, now I want to really get uncomfortable. Okay, what does it feel like when I get cravings? What are my cravings telling me? What are they teaching me here? How do I start to work with my body and understand it? So usually it's like the second 6 months that they really have let go of their self judgment. They let go of sometimes we spend the first 6 months letting go of their own self criticism and their own self judgment around looking at their behaviors. And so I tell them the faster that you get curious, the faster you're going to start to see these changes in the growth. So then by the third or the second time around, they're getting uncomfortable, they're practicing. And then sometimes by like a third time around, they've practiced it so much that they're like living it. They're not mentally forcing themselves to eat a certain way. They're embodying it. It's like now who they are. They're in tune with their body. Their natural inner dialogue is love and kindness. So I give them all the tools on the first 6 month round, and then they typically get comfortable with with practicing it more on the second time around. And then the third time around, like they're living it in their being. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how I tell them, everybody's different. You're on your own timeline, but this is kind of like don't be self-critical if like it's hard at first or it's uncomfortable. This is totally new. And they're like, okay, phew, okay. Yeah, I'm just checking things out. I'm just figuring this out. You know what I mean? It like takes
Mhm.
the pressure off.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I think especially our industry, dietetics, all of that, I think we attract a very perfectionistic type A, I want to do the
Ah,
thing and get the result type of
yes.
person. And that is generally a difficult perspective to take into entrepreneurship because it
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
work like that. I don't think it works like that in most places other than school. Like school's like, okay, I did my homework assignment, I answered the questions, I did it the way the teacher wanted me to do it, I got the A, you know, did the linear experience there. And so whether it's food and relationship with your body like you're working on or business entrepreneurship, trying out new things, like I just don't think a lot of programs or coaching experiences are ever going to be this like linear. I took the step, I got a result. I took the step, I got a result. And I do think that a lot of people that do have that linear, like perfectionistic mindset get really hard on themselves when they try something that doesn't work or they have to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit. And so, what advice would you have for the listeners who are that, whether they're recovering perfectionists in air quotes, or they just know they have that tendency to be really hard on themselves when they do a bunch of work on something and it doesn't give them the result that they want, which is like pretty much a guarantee it's going to happen in
Oh
entrepreneurship,
yeah.
probably is going to happen a lot. Like how would you recommend that they approach that from a mindset perspective so that one, they don't like, I think the main thing that these people do, these people being like health entrepreneurs who want everything to be perfect, they just avoid taking action because it can't be perfect, so I'm not gonna do it. Kinda like what you were saying before where your coach was like, "Don't worry about all this, like, platform stuff and all these questions. What's the first thing you can do?" Right? So kinda got you out of that. Like, I have to have it all figured out before I
Yeah.
take an action. And then when they finally do take an action, if it doesn't give them the result that they want, it's like the shame spiral of like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. I did all this work and it didn't work. So I know that's kind of like two different issues, but I think it
Mm,
stems from the same desire to like
yeah,
do it and it works. And there's no learning process. It's just A to B.
totally. Yeah, and I think that entrepreneurship is a transformational journey, and I because of everything that you just said, I can relate to everything that you just said so much, and what is so special about it is that it mirrors exactly what our clients are feeling. Like everything that you just described is exactly what our clients feel. Oh my gosh, it wasn't perfect. I messed up. Shame spiral. I want to give up. I'm not cut out for this. This is who I am. Da 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 da. And so it can be something that we look at as crippling, or if we looked at it from like a greater perspective, that one business for me has been a massively transformational experience of really knowing what do I desire and recommitting to it over and over and over again and being willing to mess up and learn from those mistakes and being humbled by it. And it's okay that not everybody does it because gosh, it's a humbling experience. But if I continuously show up, I will continuously build confidence and figure it out. And you have to start as a student, and I'm still very much a student and learning. And those are the same words that I can relate to with my clients. And so as I'm giving them advice, I'm also giving myself advice. And some of the big key takeaways that I tell to my clients is don't expect perfection because that's when you go into a shame spiral of like, I can't do this, da, 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 da. And that's what really messes people up. But it's when you can say, "Oh, wow, this is tough today." And you can shift from judgment to curiosity. "Oh, I wonder what I have to learn from this experience." And then you keep learning and you have all of these moments that give you the lessons that you need to learn and grow. And I think that they're the exact same parallel things. You have to have a deep desire, you have to have a deep why, because whether you're in a transformational process with your business or with your health, it will not be easy. It'll be wildly uncomfortable, but you have to have something that's so meaningful. And it's a big part of it's the number one thing that I first have all of my clients do is connect with their why and their deeper meaning so that they have something that's like this matters to me and then shifting their perspective that failures are not bad. There are teachers, we learn about ourselves, and I encourage them to say, "Tell me what you learned about yourself. Tell me what you learned inside of the cravings, the challenges. Like, let's go into what that felt like and what do you have to learn?" And it's just an exact mirror. So, as I give them advice, it's also advice for me. And it can be a way to just relate to your clients more. I every step of the way. I mean, my clients have just been a mirror for me, and I just have to see even though this business stuff is so challenging and not natural, it's like we go to school because we love nutrition, and then we have to learn about marketing, and it's like, "What?"
Yeah.
It's hard,
Mhm.
but I think what keeps me in it through the challenges, the failures, the lack of perfectionism, the self-criticism, is just that I'm like, what I desire is bigger than my fears, than the pain of learning. So
Mhm.
it's a deep why that keeps me going. And I use those same lessons for myself and I apply them to my clients because they're going through the same thing.
Yeah. I love that. And it is so funny how it's like we can see it for our clients so easily, but then for
Yes.
ourselves, we're like, "Oh, but no, I have to get it right the first time, and it has to be perfect, and it has to like, work exactly the way I want it to after all the work I just did." So it is ironic that those of us who are really good at helping others, it's like maybe we need to just apply that to ourselves more often, that same perspective.
Oh, I know it. I do. I know it. And I think it's helpful to surround yourself with people or like communities like you have. I think that when you go about it alone in isolation, that's when you start to think like, this is only me. I'm not cut out for this. But when you're surrounded by other people and communities who are in it too, they're like, yeah, I'm in it too. It's messy. And that has helped me a lot is seeing that other entrepreneurs are not successful because they're perfect. They're successful because they're willing to fail and to be humbled and to just keep going and to keep trying. So I think as much as you can surround yourself with people who can reflect that back to you is what can really keep you going.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be your final word of wisdom for anyone who wants to sell high ticket? And again, high ticket is whatever high ticket means to you. It can
Yeah.
be any dollar amount. 30 plus $1,000 is not what we're defining as high ticket. I was joking with my husband before I jumped on. I was like, I don't even sell something at 30,000. Maybe I need to think about what could I be selling for that much. But all of that to say, anyone who's like, I want to sell something higher ticket. I know for our clients, we teach the higher ticket approach because I do find from a lifestyle perspective, it is easier to take care of yourself financially and not get burnt out from a bazillion sessions and also deliver, I think, a better experience for your customers if you do a higher ticket offer. But what would you say to somebody who's like, I want to do this, I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah. Something that I would just encourage is it's hard to do high ticket if we take the things that we learned, which is kind of nutrition information, and we offer that because that can be compared to AI, to free resources. Information is tough, but if you really go deep within yourself, I know a lot of us became dietitians because there's something that we felt passionate about or struggled with, and the more I could let go of my judgment and my need to be a perfect dietitian and really feel like, what am I personally struggling with that I so badly want to understand and solve and get it inside and out, so that when I'm sitting with somebody, I can say, I have been there and I feel so deeply confident to my bones that if this is what you're struggling with, if you're like me, where like I knew how to eat healthy, I have all the degrees, why can't I figure this out? If that's you too, I've been there. And so if you can just develop that much intimacy with a pain that feels so personal to you, that you feel so passionate about finding a solution for, and you can speak to that person that you have been there, I think that that is what creates a high ticket offer. And because your gifts and your methods will come from your experience, and you don't have to memorize facts, you don't have to worry about being bad at it. You're just like, this is what I discovered, and it's so true for me, and it feels so in integrity and in alignment. And it won't be for everyone. It will clear out a lot of people that it's not for. General nutrition information probably is for everyone, but like really getting down to your pain and your passion. But that's, I think, when you speak to somebody really deeply and you feel confident in what you're offering because it came from your life and your stories. I didn't know if this would really help anyone else when I first got started, but I had something in my heart that was like, this is helping me. And that is all the reassurance that I need. And it's okay to start small and to like let it build and build your confidence. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I'm just gonna try this thing and I might fail or I might let somebody down. I think the confidence comes from, what do you feel confident that you can promise, and continuously pushing that edge of like, what are my gifts? Where do I want to learn more? Where do I want to develop more skills? And continuously leaning into that. But yeah, I think it really stemmed from solving my deepest pain that I felt
Mhm.
very passionate about.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very full circle back to the internal guidance piece, which in dietetic school, it's like, what's the evidence? What does the, professor say is the right way? What's the protocol? Like it's always like, what do other people say is the right way to do stuff? So I think that is such a huge opportunity for unlearning the external authority and really bringing it back inwards and saying, well, what do I know to be true? And what do I know is, at least for the people that are similar to me or going through similar challenges as me, like what can I really be confident? And that confidence comes from something I think in a very different place than the confidence of, well, I memorized this textbook or, I have the guide on like, the latest diagnostic criteria or whatever the external reference is that people would be using.
Yeah, yeah. And it's okay if you don't feel like you have those skills developed yet. But staying curious that it's like, okay, I know all this nutrition information. What are some things that I'm struggling with or I feel like are my natural gifts? And where do I want to continuously lean into that. Maybe I started reading books that were completely not dietetics related and just different ways to like expand and grow and understand like how do I resolve what I'm struggling with. So you never know where you might find something that really expands what you offer.
Mhm. Well, Gina, this was very, I think, eye-opening for me. I know that a lot of our listeners are gonna be intrigued by just the expansion of what's possible for especially for
Cool.
a dietitian. I just feel like for whatever reason, we just have this chip on our shoulders about, what are we allowed to charge? What's, valuable as far as our services are concerned. So I know that this conversation is going to blow a lot of people's minds about what could be done and what is possible and what things can look like. And again, not to say that that's the way it should look like, but it's just saying, hey, maybe the things you think are what's required of a health expert or a dietitian is actually not. And there's a different way to look at it. So I really appreciate your willingness to come on here and be so honest and open about your journey. For the people who would love to connect with you deeper, learn more from you, maybe start to pick up some of these skills for themselves so that they can help their clients get better results and even just like go into making offers and creating programs in a more chill way and not so like it has to be perfect and it has to get everybody results in a very short period of time, like just having that better mindset around delivering a service. What's the next step that we can send them to?
Yeah, if you want to stay connected, I always love connecting with other dietitians or coaches. I'm on Instagram, gina.worful. And then I did recently create just a training from some of the lessons that I learned on like working with clients. How do I continuously help them stay motivated and inspired? And how do I help them navigate challenges and cravings? So it's not really about creating offers, but how do you help your clients have a more transformational, deep experience? And you can find that on masteringmindfulness.institute. There should be a tab for professionals and just a free training you can check out for a little more support.
Awesome. Well, we will make sure to link to that training in the show notes so it's super easy for you to find. And yes, please follow along with Gina because I do think that there's a concept called expanders in the business space where being around other people who are doing things that inspire you and show you what's possible actually makes things more possible for you. So I would consider Gina a huge expander for all of us
Oh,
and would definitely encourage you to go follow her and check out what she's doing.
I
So
love that. I need more dietitian friends.
yeah, well, dietitian friends who are not like I feel like there's like a group of dietitians in the online world and these Facebook groups that are so like petty and like, oh, I got to go after this person or oh, this
Mhm.
person's doing something wrong. And I'm like, everybody just needs to like stay in your lane, focus on your own stuff. I mean, obviously, if somebody's causing serious harm, that's a different story. But
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this person in my town is a personal trainer and she's doing macro coaching. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that the best thing you have to do with your
I
time?
know. It's
So
like just focus on moving forward.
I
Where
know.
stay, just focus on the ways you're growing. Your people will find you. If
Right.
people want to do MLMs, that's whatever for them or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, it is funny. I don't know how that happened that we just naturally kind of developed this need to be right. And I don't want to say we like everybody, but yeah, I hear everything you're saying.
Yeah. So we want to create a space for health experts who are open minded and want to know what's possible and are excited about, changing the way things are done. So if that's you, you're in the right spot. And we're appreciating that you're here listening to this conversation. So thank you, Gina. And thanks to all of you for hanging out with us. We'll see you here next week on the Nourished CEO podcast. Bye, everybody. If you're listening to this and realizing that you're ready for more in your business, more income, more alignment, more confidence in the value of your work, then I want to invite you into a deeper level of support. Inside my mentorship, the Nourished Business Accelerator, I help coaches and experts like you create a premium offer that reflects the actual transformation they deliver and build a clean, sustainable system for enrolling dream clients consistently. All without cold DMs, manipulative tactics, or high pressure sales calls that make your stomach turn. Everything we do is grounded, ethical, and designed to help you grow with integrity and ease. When you're doing work that runs this deep, You deserve real mentorship from someone who's been through every season of business and can walk you through it step by step. And the truth is, growth feels so much more aligned and so much more powerful when you're surrounded by an intimate group of ambitious, ethical entrepreneurs who are committed to building their businesses the right way, not the hustly, performative way that the online world so often pushes. Most people don't realize how heavy their business feels until they finally experience what it's like to be supported at this high of a level. The NBA is the space where you will stop second-guessing yourself, stop piecing things together alone, and step fully into the leadership and strategy that make your business feel profitable, spacious, and deeply aligned with who you are. So, if you're ready to grow your business in a way that honors your expertise, supports your offline life, and helps you impact more clients without burning yourself out in the process, the NBA is your next step. To learn more or apply now, send me a DM on Instagram with the word NBA to @LauraSchoenfeldRD, or you can check the show notes for the link. I would love to support you as you grow into your next level as an online entrepreneur.